The night she pushed my hand away and spat, "Don't touch me," seared into me like a brand. I remained in the hallway, stunned by the chill in her tone, as the rooms of our home seemed to tighten around me. Rather than yell or beg, I slipped out without a sound. No slammed doors, no theatrics. I chose silence as my first weapon. I checked into a low-budget motel and let the quiet work on me. In the pale morning light, clarity came. I recalled the small deceptions, the furtive notes, the late arrivals, the unexplained receipts. Trust had been flaking away like paint off an old door. That night I resolved I would stop pretending I hadn't noticed. Back before dawn, I returned home and moved without drama. I took her phone from the nightstand, unlocked it, and read the proof with steady hands. Flirtatious texts, private photos, reservations booked under another name, everything I had suspected lay there in her own words. I did not explode. I photographed, copied, and saved it all. Evidence, I decided, would be my second weapon. When she woke and found me at the kitchen table, calm as a magistrate, the color drained from her face. She lunged for the phone, stammering about friends and work, but I only handed the device back and stayed silent. Words were useless now. Her own messages had taken away her right to explanation. I poured coffee and let the steam hide the tremor in my hands. I didn't leave at once. Instead, I began to assemble a plan that would expose her betrayal to everyone she hid behind. First, I printed everything: texts, photos, booking confirmations, and arranged them in chronological order. I wanted the narrative to be undeniable, neat, and as brutal as truth often is. This wasn't cruelty for its own sake. It was about making the consequences inescapable. Next, I reached out to the people who mattered: her closest friends, a few relatives who'd grown suspicious, and the woman who had once been my wife's confidant. I handled each conversation with restraint, handing over copies of messages and letting their shock fill the spaces words couldn't. Some defended her, some stayed silent. Most stepped back and watched the facade crumble. I also knew reputation was a currency she treasured. Her role was public-facing, built on trust and a carefully curated image. Quietly, I emailed her supervisor and HR, attaching proof and explaining that deception and a conflict of interest had been occurring, with dates and documentation. I didn't smear her with falsehoods. I simply presented what she had written herself. Let policies and professional standards do what anger could not. The information spread. It moved differently than rumor, like a stone dropped into still water, ripples reaching places she hadn't anticipated. Calls came, messages came, people came asking questions she couldn't answer without further incriminating herself. In rooms where she had once commanded attention, awkward silences began replacing laughter. Her friends' defenses collapsed under the weight of her own words. She tried to fight back, shouting, pleading, promising to change, but the momentum had shifted. Her apologies felt scripted, rehearsed lines aimed at salvaging what remained. I remained composed. I refused to be dragged into a scene that would only validate her manipulation attempts. My silence had become an arena where her actions were revealed by light rather than noise. Then came the sharpest cut. I circulated a carefully written message, redacting private details but keeping the incriminating essentials, to my own circle: family, mutual friends, and a few people in her industry who needed to know. I didn't post anything on social media yet. This was targeted, surgical exposure. The goal wasn't to humiliate for strangers' entertainment, but to ensure her professional and personal life faced consequences. The day her company summoned her to HR was the day I saw genuine fear in her eyes. She tried to play innocent, but the documents spoke the loudest. She was suspended pending investigation. The same colleagues who once toasted her now kept their distance. The life she had layered with charm and omission began collapsing in public view. Neighbors, family acquaintances, even old school friends received quiet messages, not to shame, but to tell the truth and to prevent further deceit. The web she had spun to protect her secret unraveled thread by thread. Her lover disappeared the moment exposure loomed. He folded under the pressure and never answered her calls. She was left amid the wreckage she had created. I sought legal counsel next. Custody of shared assets and the house, where her infidelity had bearing on claims of trust and responsibility, had to be addressed. I was measured. No dramatic demands, only firm steps to secure what was fair and to ensure she could not weaponize deception. Documents were signed, sealed, and served. Consequences, I had promised myself, would be proportionate and unavoidable. On a chilly Saturday morning, I set a thick envelope on the table before her, divorce papers, an itemized dossier of evidence, and a brief letter. I did not gloat. My letter read plainly, "You told me not to touch me, so I walked away." I added that she had chosen to betray our vows and that the next phase of her life would be honest, if only because the truth had been made unavoidable. I left before she could reply. She attempted to salvage public sympathy with a vague, carefully worded post about personal struggles on social media. But the networks that mattered, professional forums and mutual circles, already knew the truth. Silence grew around her like frost. People who had once sought her company avoided events where she might appear. The small lies that had been her armor became visible scars. In the end, the revenge I pursued wasn't blood or spectacle. It was exposure, accountability, and the stripping away of the comfortable falsehoods she'd built her life upon. I wanted her to feel the cost of treating love like a disposable convenience. Watching her face the fallout, career setbacks, broken friendships, the humiliation of being confronted by those she deceived, was the bitter justice I permitted myself. As I walked away for good, lighter now that the truth was out, I felt no triumph in her suffering. What I felt was relief and a quiet, fierce clarity. Betrayal had consequences, and sometimes the orderly, methodical unveiling of truth is the sharpest revenge of all.